Today we're here to look at Cadimage Coverings for ArchiCAD inside ArchiCAD 17. I'm Ken from Cadimage UK, and I'm going to give you a bit of background on the company and the tools, and then we'll look at the tool itself. So first off, just a brief intro on Cadimage Group. The company's based in New Zealand, in Auckland, with a company formed 20 odd years ago. There are various offices around about the world. You can see we have head office in Auckland. There's also another office in Christchurch, New Zealand, a couple of offices in Australia. Bristol's a development office here in the UK, and I'm based in, well, the first day it was sunny, yesterday it wasn't, and today is not. So I'm in not so sunny Scotland once again. In terms of the company, these are the tools and products that we work around. The tools we're going to be looking at today, the Cadimage tools, sit inside ArchiCAD and are classed as productivity add-ons for ArchiCAD itself. There's then other sort of complementary tools that form part of the BIM market, such as Solid Edge, Celibri, FEMAP, and then the complementary tools for ArchiCAD like Atlantis or BIMX. In terms of myself, I'm one of about 30 odd members of staff that are dotted around about the world, and I look after the localised sales and support for Cadimage here in the UK. But time zone wise, because of the UK placement and the fact that the head office is in New Zealand, which is either 11 or 13 hours ahead depending on the time of year, I also look after the European, Middle Eastern, African and the North American markets. Sadly I don't get to travel to them. It tends to be over the phone or Skype or whatever, but it's always fun. I've been involved with ArchiCAD now for almost 18 years and I've trained who knows how many people. I worked out not that long ago that I've got something like 15,000 hours training experience, so I've been around for a long time. I even had a book published a couple of years ago which was an interactive guide to ArchiCAD to guide you through the process of putting the building together. And as I've said many times, ArchiCAD is not a career choice, it's a lifestyle. Going on to the tools themselves, the tools came about based on feedback from a load of customers. Cadimage started off life as a reseller of ArchiCAD in New Zealand 20 odd years ago, and there were certain things that ArchiCAD couldn't do then that the guys down in New Zealand decided to do something about, and they created a load of tools to give this valuable service to the customers. It also helped differentiate. At that time there was more than just themselves in New Zealand, so it helped differentiate Cadimage against the competitors in that sort of localised market. About 10 years ago there was a presentation at the summer school in LA, and it was decided after that to take the tools and sell them worldwide because they were so successful. Today the tools are available in 80 odd countries around about the world. Cadimage UK, where I'm based, was set up to serve the UK and the European marketplaces. It was formed back in 2012 after the acquisition of Encina. Some of you may already know Ralph and his tools such as Objective, GBXML and a few other bits and pieces. But Ralph became part of the Cadimage Group, and this helped increase the development capabilities of the group as a whole. It meant there was new tools to merge and bring together the capabilities there. And I then started about a year or so ago, initially in a beta testing capacity, and then took on the responsibility for looking after sales and support in the UK. So just a brief look at the tools. This is the current list. Because of the merger of Encina with Cadimage Group, there's some of the tools being put together, so you'll see Objective is currently being combined with extrusions and slab edges. But when we look at the tools, there's a list like that, it's actually easier to see what they do when we then combine them into their proper categories. So this particular seminar series is looking at the top 3 design tools. So here we have doors and windows, coverings, we've already looked at both of these, and also stairs. Cabinets is the final part of the design tools. We've then got some tools that are documentation based, structural type tools, and then the specialities like GBXML. In terms of overall top selling tools, the latest figures we have show that number 5 is actually tied between Objective and Electrical. Stairs is number 4, Keros is number 3, Coverings, the one we're looking at today, is number 2, and then Doors and Windows, which I looked at yesterday, is the top selling tool. What I'm going to do now is switch out to ArchiCAD and take a run through product demonstration. This is ArchiCAD 17 pretty much as it comes out the box. The only thing that's different is I've installed the Cadimage tools, otherwise we'd kind of finish the demonstration here. You'll see some of the tools, the changes that it makes is the addition of things like where we have slab edges, polystair, railing, and there's a few other bits and pieces dotted about which are part of the Cadimage toolbox. The only other significant difference to look at the screen is we have the Cadimage menu, and I've tweaked this slightly just to group together the 3 tools that we're going to be looking at. Some tools lend themselves to buttons on toolboxes, others to menu systems, and others to features within other tools. So doors and windows behave within doors and windows. Covering is the tool we're looking at. It's very, very simple. It's a range of objects that attach themselves to a particular type of element. So either column coverings, roof coverings, slab coverings, or wall coverings. And then we have an option there to update once we've made some major changes, etc. If we take a look and just start off by showing you some examples, we're going to look first of all at some wall coverings. So in 2D, there's not a lot to see. We can see some of the upstands and we can see some of the overhangs that are on these particular windows, but there's not a lot to show in 2D. So if we take a look at 3D, you can actually see what we're talking about. So I should point out, don't worry too much about the hideous design of some of these elements. I've actually extracted these bits and pieces of walls with their coverings from one of the test files that's used during the testing process for either upgrades or interim release upgrades through a product's lifespan. So it's trying to throw all combinations of all sorts of things at a particular surface so it can be tested to make sure that it stands up to whatever it's supposed to do. You can see here, hopefully, we have different types of cladding running at all sorts of funny angles. We've got hideous colours in different places. We have logs, we have weatherboards, we have tongue and groove, there's bricks, there's tiles. If we go to the other side, it kind of gets worse. There's corrugated sheets, there's horizontal trimmers, vertical trimmers, trimmers that follow the profile of the roof elements. The cladding can follow the roof or it can stop at a particular height. Same for the base levels. And if I go to the final view, again you can see the random choice of colourings. But as I say, this is just to throw everything at a particular shape and check it works. The way it is actually working is the cladding is attached to a wall that sits behind the covering. And as you would expect, little things like if I take this door and delete it, then you'll see the covering automatically repairs itself and reapplies across the hole that has now been filled in. So if I undo, and in the same way, I'm going to just stretch the window. The covering updates and heals itself, so there's not too much to worry about there. So if I take a look at some roof cladding now, roof cladding is one of the tools that I love the most because of the way it does just the gutters and downpipes. I've spent hours and hours and hours over the years positioning gutters and downpipes, but it's automatically created as part of our covering for a roof surface itself. There are these 7 types of coverings we can apply. We can have no covering at all, which, let's take a look in 3D actually. These are just basic colours, but hopefully you can see some of the shapes and things going on in here. Try not to navigate too much in 3D because it doesn't broadcast particularly well. But the first one we have here is no covering at all, but that gives us the ability to have our trimmers, our gutters, our downpipes, fascia boards, boxed ends, whatever we want onto the roof surface itself. There's then a flat surface which just puts, as the name suggests, a flat surface on top. We can have corrugated, ribbed or standing seam as we'd call it more commonly here. We then have shingles, which if I select it you can see the contours a bit more clearly. I'll show you an elevation as well, but shingles are what we use in the UK to represent a slate. We can set them to the appropriate size for that. We then have tiles, so traditional sort of concrete tiles, and the last one here is Spanish tiles. So these are just different claddings, but all of the other trimmers and things are identical throughout the rest of the range. Because we're not just looking at 2D, at the plan view, or the 3D, we can obviously get our elevations and sections from this same model. So again, you can see here the different surfaces. Briefly zoom in, you can see the way these appear in elevation. If I take a look at section, and maybe a section through one of these two here. If I go in here, you can see the gutters, the boxed ends, the soffits, the fascias, our downpipe, and all the other bits and pieces of detail that have been added here. And this is done, well, you'll see in a second, it's nice and quick to do that. So what I've done now is I've gone to a model, just a very simple model as it stands at the moment. You can see it doesn't have a lot of detail in it, and I'm sure you'll agree its architectural prowess is amazing. But what I'm going to do is use coverings to embellish the amount of detail in there and give us something that hopefully looks a little bit better than it does at the moment. So if I drop back to the floor plan, the way we add coverings is, I already showed you the pull down menu. We select an element and then we choose to add a covering to it. So let's start off with a slab. And all I do is go coverings, and I want a slab covering. And what we can do here is we can either add a precast slab, or what I'm going to do in this case is add some decking elements. In here we can choose the sizes, so I'm going to go for wide boards that are maybe 215, 35, and I'll have a 5mm gap between them just to make sure it stands out. We can change materials. So pine vertical at the moment I'll probably just leave. And we can also change the appearance, the 2D appearance, so what it actually looks like in terms of pens, colours, fills, etc. There's also an option for display options to choose whether or not we cast shadows with the board, so that's going to help increase the performance if we don't cast the shadows, because the chances of seeing them are pretty slim. So it's a very simple object, and all we do is just click OK, and suddenly we have decking boards. This is an object that overlays what's underneath, so if I really want to, I can move the origin. You'll see the boards move with it. So let's rotate it round to 315. So we now have diagonal boards across. And then the other thing I can do is grab an edge, and we can actually put a trim board in place. So we can do that on the 4 edges, and that finishes off nicely what's going on in there. So that's our slabs, nice and simple. But the next one I'm going to go for is the roof. So grab my roof, and again all I do is Cadimage Coverings and Roof Coverings. So in here I can play with a number of things. I can look at the default settings, but what I'll do is leave the defaults. We actually have the ability here, we can pick individual faces. If we go in here, we can pick these individual edges of the roof, and then we can start to decide what type of finish it has. So we can override the ridges, the barges, the hips, the valleys, and the gutters. I'm going to start and just put something in place. So I'm going to go for cladding, and we will have shingles. And if we have another look at 3D, we can now see lots of extra detail round about the roof visible up here. So if we go back to 2D, and what I'm going to do is just pick up some of these roof elements to have a play with. We'll go into the settings, and then we can play some more with these particular settings here. So let's go for shingles. We'll set these for maybe 250 by 200. It's only 2mm thick at the moment, but a slate tile's probably 12mm, something like that. Set an overhang. We have the option to change the materials. So this is going to be a sort of dark grey slate colour, and let's have a slightly darker alternate. We can then change our custom settings for the appearance, so pens, colours, fills, usual sort of stuff. We can choose to include the framing or not include the framing. So on slates, we might want it, we might not, but it's a case of choosing what type of frame it is, what the sizes are, if the first batten is visible or not, and if we include the battens within the roof space or leave them separate. So I'm going to leave them switched off for now. We can then choose edge boards, and we have controls over fascia boards. We can set the edge board profile. We'll go for one of those. Again, we can change the materials. So the fascia, what I tend to do initially is make everything a really bright colour so you're able to see the detail of them within the model, and then come back and turn them into something reasonable. We can set the barge board to either match, or we can make it completely different. And the same for barge up to the ridge. When I go to soffits, we have the option of flat soffits or sloping soffits. Set the various sizes for the overhangs, what we do with the ends, let's box them in. Again, we can set materials, so let's make the soffits. I've used red and yellow, so let's have blue and purple. We've then got control over the flashings. So barge flashings, the hip, the apron, the valleys. You can go through the various settings, and there's a number of options that you can choose to give you whatever type of profile you want to be in there. So we can choose whatever options are necessary. And again, there's further controls to set materials. I'm running out of hideous colours now, so let's have, I haven't used green yet. Green, dark reddy purpley colour, and there's paint 8. Final couple of parts are the gutters and downpipes. So our gutters can form a number of different shapes. Let's go for colonial. Set the various sizes. We can set the materials. So the gutters we will make, what can we have? Let's just make them black this time. And the downpipes, what we can do with those, they can either be round or rectangular. Again, set the sizes and the angles and the position of the brackets, the depth of the brackets, etc. But we'll just make these grey. Final option here is a display option. We can choose what's visible on the home story, above or below. We can set the 3D properties and the section properties, the resolution, the amount of detail, and whatever other information we need in there. So a whole load of changes. If I just hit OK, What you'll see is the plan view updates, and it actually shows the tiles. And so you can see all sorts of hideous colours going on in here, but hopefully, if we spin up and come around to the edge here, you can see we have various different tiles going on in there. We can see the different types of trim. You should be able to see the gutter. It's hard to see because it's black. It might not have been a great choice after all. But you can see there's a whole load of detail has been added there with relatively little amount of work. To do that manually would be quite considerable, and I've done it too many times. So if I drop back to 2D, you'll notice there are no downpipes there, because the downpipes, it's up to us to choose as humans where we want them to go. So the way we actually place them is dead simple. We select the object that is the covering, and you'll see there's a couple of hotspots on the corner. So one of these is to manually cut the ends. If we were joining two completely different types of roof, we can cut the ends of the gutter off completely so that we can miter two roof sections together. The other option, the one I'm interested in, is this one here, where I just start to drag, and you'll see I've got my little profile visible, and this is the position of the downpipe. So let's make it 1200 from the corner, and we'll do one more on the other side. So grab my roof, grab this, pull that in, this time make it 700. And if I go back to 3D, quick look back at 3D, and you should see the downpipe's now visible. The only thing I have to do is select it and stretch it to whatever level is appropriate. So I'll take it down level with the base of the wall. So that's a roof covering with quite a bit of detail you can see has been added. If we go back to 2D, what I'll do just to finish off is quickly throw in some wall coverings. So I'll grab my walls, do the usual Cadimage Coverings wall coverings. And again in here there's a number of options to look at, but I'm keeping an eye on time as well. So what I'll do is just choose to split into different opening or different covering types above and below the sills, and also above any openings. So we can then set the shape. We want it to follow the wall. We can set it for flat for a particular height. We can set it to follow up to a maximum height, or we can actually do custom shapes as well. We can then move on and look at coverings. So because of what I've chosen, I've got 4 covering options. So the main covering, which is going to be the section in the middle of the wall, I might want to be panels. We can then set the panels to be, let's say, 300 high, 1200 wide, no offsets. We'll have maybe 30mm of a gap, shadow gap between each panel. And we can set the materials to whatever we want them to be again. So again, I'm going to choose something that's pretty visual, so we'll go for yellow. If we then look at below the sill, what I can choose to have here is some, let's go bricks or blocks. So we set the size, so let's have 0 cavity, we want 100 wide, we want these to be 75mm high and 225 wide. And in the corners we'll go 112.5 just to offset the start point. What we can do is set the materials and colours, so we'll go for a kind of a brick type colour. We can then choose what happens above the head in the wall display. So let's have, what have I had already? We could have logs for a log cabin effect, but I don't think so. Maybe we'll just go board and battens, and what I can actually do is turn that 90 degrees, set the various sizes. So these are 30mm deep. We'll have them on 300 centres. We'll make them 50mm wide is fine, and 20mm offset from the front. And again, we can set what happens in here for colours and things. So let's just go with purpley colour, something that we're going to see. Final option I went for was a different finish above the openings. So cladding type there. Let's just have some log cabin type stuff, and we'll set that for some sort of wooden finish. So I'm just randomly picking different ones to show the different surfaces that are possible. The final bits here is we can actually choose to insert horizontal trims at various places. So the top of the wall will leave untrimmed. The sill height, maybe what we'll do is we'll put on a sill. Again, set the materials to what we need them to be. Let's make them red. Same for the wall base. We can choose to automatically trim the openings. We just literally grab and off we go. So let's say the surround can be a block. Set our various sizes. We'll have it above and below. Set the materials. So we'll have these as all green, linked together. And then the final options are again to do with the display options. So there's a whole host of options to play with. Hit OK. Final thing we do is say I want this on the outside of the walls. Hopefully you can see that now. I obviously have to do a little bit of work on the heights for the head heights of the window and the sill heights, but hopefully you can see the different surfaces for our brick below the sill level I've chosen. We've got our cladding panels that are 1200 by I think 300 I went for. We've got our vertical panels up here and also our lovely log detail across the top there. So I'm not going to be doing too much more in here. Hopefully nobody's joined that hasn't seen this before and wondered what they've actually created building-wise, but it was actually meant to be like that. That's kind of normal. All joking apart though, when I'm doing a real building with cladding like this, I do tend to work with these mad colours to begin with, because then you can identify very easily what's what. Make sure that the sizes and the construction's right, and then we go back and worry about the actual real finish that's going on these things. So there's our cladding in 3D. If I just drop back to a section, what you can also see here is, this is part of the roof that I haven't yet fixed the depth of the overhang, but you can see a cladding that's applied to the face of that particular wall. You can also see the profile of the gutter. The slates are in place. If we go to the top here, you can see we have a ridge piece that's bridging the gap over there and closing off what's happening at that point. If we then look at elevation, you'll see the scale of the hideousness of what I've created, and of course it is an elevation, so I can always go into the settings and change the properties so that it then shows as coloured. So we'll shaded, I don't want Victorial hatch, and we'll have shadows. So that allows it to recalculate and show the elevation with the, in this case, hideous colours that I've already chosen. So that's a brief run over what's actually happening in here. What I'm going to do is drop back to PowerPoint. So back in PowerPoint, just a few bits to finish off. One of the things that users are potentially concerned with, because they may have had bad experiences in the past, is the development process. And what I can say is that Cadimage work to the same release cycle as full ArchiCAD. The development team have got a close relationship with Graphisoft Hungary, so they know what the development plans are from Graphisoft and can then bring our own tools in line with those upgrades, etc. Although we cannot categorically promise we will deliver version XYZ in time for the release, what we can say is that if you go back over the last 7 versions, we have actually delivered on time for the release of that full version. ArchiCAD 17 I was involved with myself, and I know that in the UK certainly the tools were ready about a week ahead of the actual availability of full-blown ArchiCAD 17 for the users, so it's every intention to deliver on time. The focus with any of the upgrades is always making sure that there's any bugs have been fixed and bringing in enhancements to work with the latest technology that ArchiCAD can offer. In terms of resources, if you want to find out some more about the products and the tools and availability, etc., you can take a look at cadimage.com. This is not just about the Cadimage tools, it's a complete portal for ArchiCAD content, so there's tips and tricks and movies. There's a knowledge base which has got tons of useful information about all of the tools and how they work, and installation tips, all these sort of things. There's also a tip of the day you can subscribe to within ArchiCAD, which will pop up the tip of the day as you start ArchiCAD, just to give you a little tip about some feature. And there's also some ArchiCAD objects, templates and work environments on the website as well. Other resources, if you want to find out a bit more about the tools, is the main one being you can do a 30-day trial free of charge. That's not restricted in any way other than the 30-day time limit, so you get full functionality. Everything that I've done today, you can do that in the trial, although it takes a particular skill to get that colour set that I chose. If you have a student or an educational version, you can also get the tools through the My ArchiCAD portal to work with your particular licence. Part of any of this, you get access to the online support centre and the ticket system. You also get access to the tips and tutorials and bits and pieces that are on as well, and you also have access to the knowledge base and the help centre. The final thing is, if you're based local to the UK, my role is to provide localised sales and support, pre-sales support as well. So if you have any queries, you can always get in touch with me. Just a little note on pricing. If you have a need for more than one licence, we obviously publish the prices. So we also have the ability to have a multi-license discount. So what that means is if you look at more than one license, as soon as you buy a second license, you automatically get 20%. When you buy more than 6, it goes up to 40. When you buy more than 10, you get up to 60% discount. There's also bundle discounts. So today we're looking at coverings. Yesterday we looked at doors and windows, and the day before we looked at stairs. Depending on what you buy, there's bigger discounts on there. So up to 5 or more products, you get 20% discount. And the final part of the pricing is just the upgrades. Our upgrades are fixed at 20% of the suggested reselling price. So there's no big surprise when it comes around time for upgrades. Thank you for attending. And if you have any questions or queries, the contact details are on the screen now. Feel free to get in touch and I'll do what I can to help you out with any particular queries or problems.